All right, well, it's 12 o'clock. Hello, everybody. We are going to be taking care of the pre-departure orientation for the Rome Center for spring of 2025. This presentation is going to be recorded, so please make sure that you mute your microphone during the presentation. And then if you don't want to have your video on, that's fine. We understand that. And then at the end of this presentation, we will have a question and answer section where you can unmute yourself or put your questions into the chat feature. The recordings and the slides for this event will be posted on our Go Global brochure page, so you can always reference it as a resource going forward. In addition to that, we are taking attendance. So if your name is not present, if it just says iPhone, if you could correct that, please, or send us an email, we'd appreciate that so that we can duly note that you were present for this presentation. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to introductions and our welcome. So the next few people, the slides here that you will see, are individuals that hopefully look familiar to you. Marley is our Director of Study Abroad. She is present here. My name's Alana Carroll, and I have interacted with a lot of you on the post-acceptance side of things, especially with the student visa process. So continue to ask me questions or reach out if you are still finalizing your materials for that. And then there is Adam and Abby. They are your Rome Center Assistant Directors. They have helped you through the initial side of things, such as learning about the Rome Center and the application process, and they continue to be a resource as well. So between the three of us, we are here for you. Should you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to any of us, and we will help guide you through the answers for your questions. The next group that I would like to introduce you to, they are not present, but I think it's important that you see them, is the student life team in Rome. The first person on that slide is Jack Spittle. He is our current resident director of student life at the Rome Center. He's also an alum the Rome Center, so he's been in your shoes. He's been there, he's gone through this whole process. So he is an excellent resource when you are there on campus. In addition to that, the three other individuals listed here, their pictures, they are assistant resident directors, Simone, Amir, and Alexia. You could not ask for a more welcoming and helpful group. They truly are very passionate about the Rome Center and what they do and how they can help you as a student. So they're a wonderful resource to you while you are in Rome. Please utilize them, and they can help you help answer any questions you may have or concerns. Overview. So today with this pre-departure orientation, we would like to have a little bit of an opportunity. It's kind of hard via Zoom, but to kind of meet some fellow students on the programs. There'll be other opportunities throughout the semester for this as well. But then we also want to talk about cultural adaptation, wellness abroad, health and safety, including CISI, which is the mandatory health insurance program that you all will be enrolled in. Title IX, what that looks like abroad, student visas and arrival to Italy, campus and student life, Rome resources, the academics and course registration process, what that looks like for you, preparing for study abroad, and next steps and questions. With that being said, I am going to move it over to Marley, and she will talk about cultural adaptation. And Marley, I'll just move the slides for you, so just let me know.
Okay, yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Marley Stein. I'm really excited to talk to you about your upcoming semester in Rome. Next slide. So an overview of the cultural adaptation section is we're going to go over the definition of cultural adaptation and cultural misunderstandings, talk about the various phases of cultural adaptation, and then also tips for managing cultural adaptation and building intercultural competence. And afterwards, we have Dr. Keller from the Wellness Center who will expand upon how to manage stress in an intercultural or international context. We got a couple QR codes here. So I highly encourage you to scan this QR code and go to the website Hofstede's Insights. It is a great resource to allow you to compare different ways of thinking, different ways of interacting between two different cultures. Here you'll see I compared Italy and United States. If you have another identity or another nationality or culture that you're particularly connected to, please go on this website and include a third, and you can kind of see how the intersectionality of your own identity and your own background will inform how you might be interacting with the local culture in Italy. And also we don't have time for this to go through kind of the breakdown of the comparison between all of these, but it is really interesting and it'll inform maybe some cultural misunderstandings you might encounter when in Italy. Just to give you a couple of examples here, you'll see that indulgence between the US and Italy is very different. The US tends to be a lot more indulgent of a culture, more materialistic, less concerned with these are generalizations, but generally less concerned with sustainability and recycling and care for the greater community. Whereas in Italy, indulgence is something that is not as common. They will only take what's on their plate that they plan to eat, as opposed to maybe in the US where our portion sizes are much larger. So thinking about that. And then there's also uncertainty avoidance. There's a big disparity between the two. So even in the Italian language, if any of you have taken Italian language thus far, the way the language is set up, it's very direct. In the US, we tend to use a lot of clarifiers, a lot of descriptions, a lot of pleases, thank yous, where in Italy, it doesn't mean they're rude. They're just going to say, I want that, instead of, please, may I have that item? And that's just part of the culture. They're a lot more direct. If there's a conflict or an uncertainty, they're going to talk to you about that, as opposed to being more avoidant as the US might be. Culture, though, has a lot of different definitions. So how I might define culture, how the US might define culture, how Italians might define culture is very different. But this is a general recognized definition of culture from the University of Minnesota. So culture is defined as shared patterns of behaviors, interactions, cognitive constructs, and effective understanding that are learned through a process of socialization. So anything that's commonly done within a particular group of people. And these shared patterns identify the members of that cultural group. So because the Italians have a lot of commonalities, that is why they're defined as that particular cultural group. Next. All right. Before I get into this, I would just love to hear what some of your thoughts on what is culture. So if you could just put in the chat how you define culture, that would be really helpful, just to see where you're all starting from, what your perspectives are. So what is culture? Or how can it be defined? All right. Well, I'll let you all keep thinking on it. And as the presentation goes on, if you'd like to share what your definition of culture is, we would love to hear that. This is an example of an iceberg. This is a really easy way to describe visible and invisible culture. So some culture you can see presently in your day-to-day, and other culture you're really going to have to dive deep through conversations, unpacking experiences, communicating with your teachers and your professors as well to understand that. So food, dress, music, visual arts, drama, crafts, celebration games, those are all examples of visible culture. And then below the surface, there are many other examples. So this might be how people date one another, the patterns of group decision making, eye contact, closeness, close talking. So you'll definitely notice that the Italians talk a lot closer to you than the US do. Tone of voice, the concept of time. So is it disrespectful to be late? Is it not? Those are all examples of, oh, I love everybody's suggestions. Thank you. Those are all examples of culture that is invisible. So just to share a couple of yours, definitions of culture, differences in background and traditions, something that you value and practice. Values is another example of an invisible or deep culture. How a community identifies through behavior. That's a good definition of culture. Excellent. And you'll also see that there's a lot more that's beneath the surface than what's above. So it really is just to encourage you to not just jump to conclusions based on something you're visually seeing in your day-to-day, but to focus on what you would learn after having those conversations to understand more why something is the way it is. Next. So cultural adaptation, it is the long-term process of adjusting to and finally feeling comfortable in a new environment. So the process of becoming comfortable and at ease and part of your new environment is the process of cultural adaptation. Throughout cultural adaptation, you might experience something called a cultural misunderstanding or bumps. This is often called culture shock in some literature. And so you're going to have moments where your expectations of a particular behavior ends up being different than your actual interactions. And when that happens on both sides, that's going to be a moment of a cultural bump or cultural misunderstanding. When there are miscommunications due to different cultural norms and language barriers, it could potentially be unpleasant. It could be uncomfortable. It could be stressful. However, these cultural bumps are also learning opportunities and can result in cultural or hopefully linguistic growth as well. We encourage you, if you do experience any cultural misunderstanding, to ask questions and to further understand why that might have occurred. This is a general overview of the ups and downs that you might experience as you're adapting to a new culture. It's important to recognize that this is different for every single person in every single context. So just because you're experiencing a cultural adaptation moment that might be lower, your roommate or your peer might not be experiencing it at the exact same time or at all. Some people don't even have this experience. The first, when you get there, you're going to be very excited. You're going to want to eat all the pasta. You're going to want to talk to the student life team. You're going to want to meet locals. And everything's going to be new, beautiful. Rome is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen in my life. So you'll be in this euphoric state. You're going to think that everything Roman is the best and everything in the US, I'm over it. And that's called the honeymoon phase. So it's very happy, very euphoric. However, as time goes on, and this is normal and part of the cultural adaptation process, you're going to start to feel that what is different is actually inferior as opposed to better. And that means the host culture might be confusing, or the systems are frustrating. You don't understand why a particular culture is approaching something differently than you might be accustomed to doing in the US. And that can breed frustration. So in that moment, understand that this is part of the learning experience, and you will gradually adapt from having had this low point. Maybe you miss your flight, maybe you miscommunicate about where to meet or how to meet, or order the wrong thing. That can always be frustrating. And then also in that period, you might be have feelings of homesickness, missing what you're used to, your old routine, your old way of doing things. But as time goes on, you'll feel more relaxed and develop more of a balanced, objective view of your experience, because you'll be able to understand what things you might like better about the Italian culture and way of life, and what things you want to hold on to from your own culture and day-to-day lifestyle. That's kind of a broad overview, but in reality, there's going to be lots of ups and downs. It's not going to be a nice W as that previous depiction was. Your honeymoon's going to go up and down, your frustration. You're going to have high moments and low moments even within that period. And then adaptation will be it's not going to be a straight line upwards. It's going to be a gradual improvement. And then guess what? When you come back, you're going to have the same experience all over again, because you're going to be adjusting back to the US culture after you've been abroad for a semester or a year. And Dr. Keller will talk a little bit more about this momentarily, but one experience you might have is the difference of how another country or another culture views your identity. This could happen in Rome, Italy. It could happen when you may travel throughout Europe. There are lots of different perspectives on various identities, both your national identity and your own personal identity. So it's important to think about if when you go to Rome, you're going to be part of any majority or minority groups abroad, so that you can seek out support networks or communities that you might feel comfortable around to talk about some of the experiences you're having with that particular identity. The on-site staff can also support you with this and finding a group if you haven't been able to find one on your own once you get there. But do your own research. And the other great thing is this is a way to find to meet locals who share similar interests and values while going abroad. So maybe that's a religious affiliation, maybe that's a LGBTQI affiliation. Definitely find an organization that you feel comfortable in outside of the Rome Center as well. If you do encounter microaggressions, racism, or harassment while abroad, please inform the on-site staff and the Loyola Study Abroad team. We're here to help you and be your advocate and help you navigate some of these unfortunate experiences that may happen. And later on, you'll hear from the Office of Equity and Inclusion, who will tell you how to formally report it if there is any discrimination that you've experienced abroad, either in the local community or elsewhere. All right, next is for Dr. Keller.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Dr. Keller. Yes, we can hear you, and I can move the slides forward. You just let me know.
Oh, okay. And can you see me?
Yes, or now
okay.
we can't see you. You took your video off, but we can see your name. Oh, there you are.
Great. Hi, it's nice to be here. I'm Daniel Keller. I'm one of the psychologists at the Wellness Center, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about stress, what it is, how it can come up in your experience while studying abroad, and then also what you can do about it, and also how the Wellness Center might be helpful to you before or after you come back from your study abroad experience. I think we can move to the next one. What is stress? So next one. Slide, please. So basically, stress is our physical and emotional response to environmental demands. And it can actually be caused by both positive and negative experiences. So the classic example of a positive experience might be a wedding, while it is a happy event, can also cause obviously a lot of stress. A negative experience might be, for example, losing your job, which then can result in a lot of stress responses. And how do we know when you're stressed? So typically there is three components to stress. It can be a physical experience, such as you might notice yourself shaking, or you might struggle with sleep, or there may be changes in your appetite. Or it can have emotional factors, or so you might all of a sudden experience a lot of irritability, or stress can manifest in feeling sad a lot. And then there's cognitive aspects of stress, and those might be, for example, all of a sudden struggling with concentration or having trouble with memory, which all can be signs that our system is overloaded because of stress. Now, how does stress come up when we study abroad? It can show up in a lot of areas, and typically any one of these things would probably not make you particularly stressed, but it's sort of the countless small adjustments that you might have to make in response to when several of these things happen to you that heightens your stress and can then really impact you. So, for example, obviously communicating in a different language can result in stress. When you're all of a sudden not able to express yourself as well as in English, and your language is less sophisticated, it can all of a sudden make you feel like childlike, or make you feel not as confident, and that obviously is stressful. Language is also a big part of our identity. So once we're no longer able to kind of express ourselves very well, we can sort of feel like almost temporarily there is a loss of identity, which is stressful. Being part of a different educational system, Sometimes in Europe, the approach to lecturing or teaching can be different. Sometimes it can be more formal, so that could be stressful. Making friends or dating people with different cultural backgrounds. Some countries don't even really have the concept of dating, and also the definition of friendship can be very different. For example, in Europe versus in the US. In the US, oftentimes the word friend is applied to somebody fairly quickly. However, in Europe, sometimes friendships take a long time to develop, and so that can be stressful if you're feeling sort of lonely and you're trying to make friends. Feeling misunderstood due to different communication styles. So it's not just verbal language, but nonverbal language, struggling with maybe what is the appropriate distance you have when you talk to somebody, or even sort of gestures. Like some of you maybe know this gesture, which in the US typically refers to something is okay, versus in Russia, that refers to the number 0. In Japan, it's a sign for money. And in Brazil, it would be an offensive gesture that would probably cause some negative reactions from people. So you may make inadvertent mistakes without even realizing or being intentional about it, which can be stressful. Adjusting to different foods and eating customs. So even in Italy, sometimes meals are taken at different times and getting used to that. Or even things around, for example, in Europe, sometimes food allergies restaurants might not cater as much to certain food allergies. Or, for example, looking for gluten-free food. So if you're kind of struggling to be able to feel comfortable eating in a restaurant because you're fearful of some of these allergies, obviously that would be stressful. Finding a culturally relevant faith community is probably not so big of a deal in Europe. That's pretty similar. Experiencing discrimination, oftentimes in societies or countries where the population is kind of more homogeneous, it can be kind of challenging. People sometimes are not as educated about cultural differences and are prone to make cultural mistakes, might make offensive statements, and not even intentionally, but just because there is not as much focus on helping people learn about cultural differences. And then, of course, feeling lonely, homesick, feeling lost, even physically in space, right? For example, in the US, oftentimes cities are laid out in a grid, which is pretty easy to navigate. But in Europe, that's usually not the case. Roads can go any which way, and so even locating yourself in the city can be difficult, and you might get lost, and so those are stressful. I think next slide. So what do we do about that? Stress management. So the first thing that I always say about stress management is it's even your attitude towards stress. If you sort of think stress is just a bad thing, then obviously it's going to be more difficult to manage that. However, if we view stress as a normal experience and can kind of lean into the discomfort and roll with it, it makes it easier. If you expect things that are going to be different and that you're going to be overwhelmed at times with the change and the ambiguity, then it's easier to kind of deal with that when you're sort of already prepared yourself for all that. Remembering your personal goals and strengths can be a good strategy. Sometimes I recommend to students that you maybe write a statement for yourself about why did you choose to do this study abroad experience? What were your goals in it? And then when you're sort of hitting sort of a low point, that may be a good time to pull that out and kind of review and remind yourself what actually your initial goals were when you signed up for this experience. Seeing the adventure of things, taking risks in small steps, making friends not only with Loyola students, but hopefully with some local students as well. Maintaining your own cultural heritage can help, maybe bring something that's important to you related to your cultural background, and that gives you some comfort, and also maybe something that you can actually share with people in Italy. Letting yourself have your emotions, laughing, crying. I think it's oftentimes when people kind of start fighting with their experiences, like I shouldn't be feeling this way, this is so bad to feel, I wish I was happier. All that is kind of fighting with yourself and with your own emotional system. And that tends to actually just kind of prolong those feelings. If you are accepting of what you feel and let it be, you usually get over it much more quickly. Obviously participating in campus organizations and events, keeping a good balance of work and fun, and maintain healthy daily behaviors. Oftentimes when sleep, for example, and appetite, nutrition start to go off, then that can usually make emotional feelings stronger and can cause more distress. So maintaining routines around sleep, good routines and good routines around nutrition is important and can help you feel better. Also, just generally maintaining routine. Sometimes when you sort of feel lost and everything feels upside down, to have regular routines that you maintain can be a good way of regaining some kind of balance. So maybe if in the US you have a weekly routine of maybe watching a movie with friends on Thursday nights, maybe maintain some of those routines while you're going to Europe. Probably staying off of social media can be useful. Also, sort of the fear of missing out. Sometimes when you're studying abroad, there is sort of the pressure of all your friends are traveling on the weekends, and you want to be with them and go along with them. And sometimes it's good to just kind of stay back and just kind of take a weekend to just kind of recoup and relax a little bit, instead of the need to always keep up with everybody else and needing to see everything all over Europe. It can be stressful. And then exercise, obviously, that can be helpful, that increases endorphins and can make you happier. And asking for help. Warning signs. The warning signs, these are things to look out for and maybe signs that you should seek more help. So prolonged and intensive sad mood, pronounced changes in eating and sleep habits, anxiety that doesn't go away, worries that kind of interfere with your enjoyment of everyday life, or even not being able to focus in classes. So withdrawing from people, obviously physical illness. This is extreme, but all of a sudden experiencing suicidal thoughts or violent thoughts. And then obviously monitoring your alcohol and drug use. Sometimes people go to those things to kind of cope with stress, and that can obviously be problematic. Now, how can we be helpful? The Wellness Center, you might consider, if you're sort of worried about or nervous about studying abroad, or you think that you might become homesick, you might actually seek out some help right now before you even go to the Rome Center, and maybe take a few sessions of counseling, which is free at the Wellness Center. And we could see you on the Lakeshore campus or the Water Tower campus. Also, sometimes when you come back, the adjustment to being back here in the US can be difficult. Maybe feeling like your friends have forgotten you, or you've not kept up with their lives, and that can make you feel more lonely when you come back. And so those might be times to seek out help. Also, our medical services, if you're on some kind of prescription medication, sometimes there's regulations and rules around how much you can take, and sometimes you need certain letters to show when you're traveling abroad with some of those medications. So we might be able to assist you, and so you could make an appointment with one of our medical providers at the Wellness Center. And if you're not able to help you ourselves, then we might be able to make a referral, like where you should go to kind of get assistance with some of that documentation. And I'm going to just speak a little bit briefly about resilience. What is resilience? The definition of resilience is the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. And I'm not going to go through all these details on this slide, but resilience, building resilience and having resilience, all of us have some degree of resilience about things. And typically, I think what's good when you're in a difficult situation is to kind of remind yourself what kind of difficult situations you have been in the past, and how have you navigated them, and what within yourself did you kind of take advantage of to help you cope. So it could be maybe your sense of humor, or it could be your sense of persistence or patience, or your tenacity or courage. And kind of just remember, when I was in this challenging situation before, what did I really use within myself, and how can I kind of be the best in this situation that is challenging for me right now, and to get through it more easily, and kind of trust yourself that you will make it, and that you can manage something, and that you can seek out help and connect with other people during the periods that are difficult. I wish you all a good experience abroad. And as I said, feel free to schedule appointments with us before or after you come back, and we're happy to help you.
Thank you, Dr. Keller.
You're welcome.
We'll now transition to health and safety abroad, and Marley Stein will be presenting.
I'm back to talk about the most important thing, is keeping you healthy and safe while abroad. So starting off, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what the alcohol and drug policy is, and also understands how to stay safe if consuming alcohol. So abuse or misuse of alcohol will not be tolerated. Use of drugs is not permitted. Local laws do apply, but you are subject to, you are also subject to Loyola's community standards and code of conduct. You all have this in your Go Global portal. So the John Felice Rome Center version of this. So make sure that you read through those. It references the Water Tower and Lake Shore campus community standards as well. But in agreement with Loyola community standards and code of conduct, no alcohol should be consumed during academic or program time, unless it is directly connected to the focus of the particular course or academic excursion. So drug use or possession is potentially grounds for immediate expulsion. If that happens, it'll be reported to the Dean of Students, the Dean of, and the SRCR office, and they will do an investigation to determine what the appropriate sanction or violation is. Breaking laws abroad can actually carry more severe punishment than it does here in the US. So make sure that you know what the local laws are, because if you do break a law, there's very little Loyola or our office can do to support you in that moment. Alcohol and drugs can impair judgment, especially in new, unfamiliar environments. If you are of legal age, with which most of you are, please make sure that you consume alcohol in moderation, and with an understanding that it can impair judgment and be more difficult for you to navigate a new environment as a result. Don't stay silent if you observe alcohol abuse by other program participants. So if you see somebody that is struggling, making poor decisions, let someone on staff know, and you can let your friend or peer know that you're going to share that, so that we can step in and provide resources that might help them navigate some of the stresses that come with being in a new environment and studying abroad. Look out for one another, keep each other safe. You are the most important community so you're going to need to rely on each other if you are going out. Make sure that the 5 students who go out with you are the 5 students who come back with you. You all live in the same place, so it's very easy to do that. Use the buddy system, and if someone, don't leave your peers alone. If alcohol is present, watch out for each other, watch your drinks, just make smart choices around alcohol. So health and safety. Before you go, you're going to want to make sure that you are preparing for healthy travel. Dr. Keller gave some examples of ways the Wellness Center can support you, either for mental or physical health. But if you do need ongoing medical or health-related treatment or care, make sure that you make an appointment with your physician here in the States so that you can get any prescriptions you might need, develop a plan of care, and then therefore, if you need additional assistance, we can communicate that with the Rome Center as well. So please let us know. In those appointments, make sure you discuss any medical conditions, including mental health. Also share allergies or dietary restrictions. It's with us so that we can advocate with you and for you. But if you are doing independent travel or independent dining, you'll have to advocate for your dietary or allergies yourself. Discuss prescriptions and ensure you have enough to sustain you. So some prescriptions are not available in Rome. So you're going to have to bring enough with you for the full duration of the program. If that's not possible, you can consult CISI and they can work with you to plan ahead when and how you'll be getting a prescription to Italy. But the best method is to have enough for your entire duration. Sometimes physicians can do an override for that as well. Make sure you have your prescription. It's on the bottle usually from the doctor, but if it's not, make sure you bring that with you. And you'll want to consult the CDC website. The CDC website has a breakdown by every country. So there'll be an Italy CDC website, and that's where you'll be able to see what medications are and aren't permitted there, and if you need any immunizations for Italy. These are the available travel and immunization clinics in the city of Chicago. Again, you can also see your own physician because Italy doesn't require any unique immunizations that might not be offered more widespread. So do your research. The more you know about where you're going, the safer you're going to be. Review pre-departure materials, stay updated on respiratory illnesses that might be happening. If you need any vaccinations related to that before you go, get those. Learn about which medications are restricted and illegal, and then research the socio-political climate and other safety matters. So the culture, the history, the politics influence what is happening in the country, and that could knowing more about that will keep you safe when interacting with others there. You can learn more about that from the U.S. Department of State, travel.state.gov. And on that website, they have travel advisories, exit and entry requirements, and then also country-specific health and safety information. Do your research. Always lock doors and windows when you're there. The Rome campus is very, very safe, but you shouldn't be letting people that you do not know or that are not permitted to be on campus because you are not permitted to have guests stay with you. They'll tell you that when you get there, so don't plan that. And then if you're walking around Rome, pickpocketing is the highest incident that across the field that is reported when traveling internationally. So make sure you're not carrying large amounts of cash, you're carrying just enough. Europe has gone pretty paper-free, so Apple Pay, credit cards, that works pretty much everywhere. Some small towns in Italy, you will still have to use cash. Be careful with your phone and high value items. So if you're walking around, I don't get to demonstrate for you, look up, do not look at your phone. Before you leave, maybe map out where you want to go so that you don't have to have your phone out the entire time. That'll also help you be more present and get the real study abroad experience of navigating a new environment. Do not buy, consume, sell drugs. Do not drink in excess or accept drinks from strangers. Avoid public demonstrations. I think activism is wonderful, but there are ways to do it safe. And when you're in a new environment, you might not be as familiar with the local laws pertaining to public demonstrations. So make sure that if you do want to engage in activism, you're doing so through an organization or through other mediums besides a public demonstration, because oftentimes they go from safe to violent very quickly, and we just want to make sure you are safe while abroad. Never walk home alone or accept a ride from a stranger. Travel in groups and look out for one another. Walk with a purpose. Beware of traffic patterns. Car accidents are the other biggest incident, especially in Italy. You will see that the streets are very narrow. Yes, there are some pedestrian streets, but a lot of the pedestrian streets a lot of the streets have very narrow walkways on either side. And so you might find yourself jumping to the side as a car drives by. So make sure you are looking out around yourself and knowing that pedestrians do not have the right of way in Italy, and that you have to protect yourself in that space. if you are going to the beautiful coast of Italy, make sure that you only swim in bodies of water when a lifeguard is on duty, and that you obey all posted warning signs before entering any body of water. So if it says high risk or severe water, make sure that you are abstaining from swimming that day. All right, accommodation requests. So if you already have an accommodation request here on campus, you might want to look into having that accommodation request carry over with you to the Rome Center. It is not going to happen automatically. If you are going abroad, you're going to want to contact the SAC, the Student Accessibility Center, and have them pair you with a assigned advisor or case manager, where they will put together an accommodation plan for you while abroad. The deadline for the SAC request form is spring term. Does anybody know? I forgot what it is. It's in your housing questionnaire. It reminds you of that. It's also in your SAC questionnaire in the portal. So make sure that if you do need housing accommodations, you put those in ASAP. The questionnaire in the portal is just going to ask you what types of accommodations you will need, and then send you a reminder to go to the SAC Center and send a reminder to the SAC to meet with you. And if you have any trouble in knowing what Rome is like and how your accommodation might transfer there, please let us know. We can help support you in getting more information to your case manager. So while abroad, there's a lot of on-site mental health resources you can take advantage of. The Rome Center is a very strong connection with a local psychiatrist if you need that for prescriptions, etc. Dr. Amati is the on-campus psychologist and psychotherapist, and she it basically is the wellness part of the wellness center that exists in Rome. She has appointments. She's on campus pretty regularly, and she can schedule appointments as needed via email. And then if you wanted to seek a different type of counseling service, maybe outside of office hours, or if you're in a crisis, CISI has a emergency hotline that allows you 3 telehealth sessions for mental health, and they will conduct 3 of those telehealth sessions. If it is extreme, they'll work with you to get you to a hospital as quickly as possible. So that emergency number on the back of your CISI card will be your most important resource if needed. All right, emergency resources and procedures. In the event of an emergency, the most important thing you're going to want to do is call the local equivalent of 911, and then contact the on-site staff to let them know the situation you are in, or have a friend do that for you so that they can assist you. You might want them to go with you for translation, and then for an emergency. If you are not an emergency, you can see that the JFRC doctor, he's available 24/7 via text or call on WhatsApp, which is the most access you will probably ever get to a healthcare professional in your life. So that is a really good resource. He's not an official staff of the Rome Center, but he works very closely with them, and CISI insurance covers your care with him. There's also the on-site 24/7 JFRC reception desk, the security there. So there's always somebody on site that you can access and talk to for any sort of physical danger or risk that you might be in. There's the AXA number, which is the emergency medical assist through CISI that can help you locate a provider, provide telehealth resources in the moment. And then also, you probably won't have to call this because you have a lot of other resources in country. There is the Loyola emergency phone number, which routes to me. So any emergency you might have abroad, if you need to call and talk, it's going to send it over to me. So please make sure you know that you are supported on many different fronts, and call any one of them and we'll get you the resources and help you need. So for minor illnesses or injuries, if you feel sick, there's also an on-campus nurse. That would be your first point of reference to get some immediate help. If the nurse isn't on campus, you can also speak with Dr. Guerrero 24/7 via phone, text, or WhatsApp. And then if you do have an in-person appointment with him, there is a payment required for it, and then they submit the invoice for reimbursement. Okay, if you need a more specialized support, you're going to want to utilize CISI to locate a provider. You can also work with the Rome Center staff to help you navigate which provider to select because they have a preferred network of hospitals and doctors that they routinely work with or might speak English or know the Rome Center and all the students who come to the Rome Center each year. CISI, you can look up providers and they have preferred and non-preferred providers. And Alana will explain a little bit more about the differences between those momentarily. If you do have to pay out of pocket and then get reimbursed for CISI, just make sure you're prepared for the fact that you might have to pay out of pocket and then submit a claim at a later point. However, there are many direct billing options within the Rome Center and CISI network. If you have a medical emergency, get help without delay. If you want some assistance on site, there is the Student Life Emergency Phone along with Dr. Guerrero that can answer any questions 24/7. Yep. And then again, you can also call AXA.
Wonderful. Thanks, Marlene. We'll now have Nika from the OEC department, and she will talk about Title IX abroad.
Thanks so much for having me, Alana. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for letting me have a little bit of your time today to talk about Title IX and Loyola's comprehensive policy. Like I said, I really appreciate the time, and basically what I want to do today is talk you through the resources that are available to you in the event that something happens while you're studying abroad that you need support for. I'll tell you a little bit as well about our office and the nature of the work that we do so you know who you'd be reaching out to in the event that something happens. And there will be some time for questions at the end, but what I will say is that our office is always available to you if at any time you have questions about our policies, procedures, anything that you want to clarify, we're around to help with. All right, so this is our OEC team. Basically, our job is to ensure compliance with equity laws as a part of the university's mission to make sure Loyola is safe and inclusive for everyone. We do this mostly by implementing civil rights policies, coordinating the university's response to reports of sexual misconduct and discrimination, providing consultation and support, and hosting trainings like this one, popping in for little presentations here and there, and of course, just supporting the university and its mission to make sure that everyone is safe and included, whatever that might look like. You can enjoy this great photo of our team with Sister Jean. We incorporate it into like every training that we give. And like I said, these are just a little bit this is a little bit of an overview of what we do here at the university. Again, it's really about culture, making sure that reports are responded to in a timely and thorough fashion, and making sure that folks are educated about their options here at the university. Okay, so you've heard me mention something called the comprehensive policy. Let's talk about what that is. The comprehensive policy is Loyola's policy prohibiting sexual misconduct and discrimination. It applies to all Loyola students, staff, and faculty, including those outside the United States. You may also have heard of Title IX. Title IX is a federal law, so it applies across the nation, and it prohibits sex-based discrimination in educational settings that receive federal funding like Loyola. Up until August of this year, Title IX actually didn't apply to programs outside of the United States. So if there were to be an incident of sex-based discrimination or sexual misconduct outside of the United States, that would not fall under the jurisdiction of Title IX. However, at Loyola, we have long chosen to expand protections against sexual misconduct to educational programs outside the United States. So while this adjustment to Title IX itself doesn't have a huge impact at Loyola, it's still good to know about as you gear up for your study abroad journey. Okay, if there is only one thing that you take away from this spiel that I am giving you, it's that you can report any sexual misconduct or discrimination you experience while studying abroad to our office. Sometimes folks get hung up on whether what they experienced was significant enough or big enough to report. For the purposes of reporting, the answer to that question really doesn't matter. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual misconduct or discrimination, the OEC is here for you. You can report incidents by calling us, emailing us, or using the reporting form on our website, which you can find at luc.edu/equity. Quite frankly, if you just Google OEC Loyola, you'll find that information as well. In addition to that, Loyola is committed to providing support to anyone who has experienced sexual misconduct or discrimination, anyone who is involved in a report that's submitted to the OEC or OEC process. Even for folks who are studying abroad, that's sometimes a question that we get. We're equipped to be creative and collaborate with you to figure out what the appropriate support is given your circumstances while you are out of country. Okay, when we talk about reporting, folks often want to know what happens after I file a report to the OEC. This chart and what I'm about to explain to you is an extremely high-level overview just to give you a general sense of things, but I do want to take this moment to reiterate that if you at any point have questions or are curious about what happens after a report is filed, you're not remembering what we talked about today, again, we are always available as an office to walk you through it. So, basically, when a report is filed, the first step is for the OEC to reach out to the individual who experienced the alleged behavior. We call that person the affected party. We offer to meet with them to explain their rights and discuss the options that are available to them. Now, if the affected party doesn't want to obtain assistance from the university, they can simply decline that meeting with us. Part of our initial outreach is determining whether and to what extent the affected party wants support or wants to participate in a university process to resolve what they've experienced. After the initial outreach, we conduct what's called a preliminary review of the report. What that consists of is collecting some initial information, assessing the report for potential safety risks or threats, and determining what, if any, university action is appropriate in the short term to respond to the report. In rare instances, the OEC may determine it is unilaterally necessary to initiate an investigation based on a report. Like I said, those instances are rare. And in those cases, the affected party still gets to determine the extent to which and whether at all they want to participate in the process. Their autonomy is very important to us and very much top of mind as we're working through all of this. Whether initiated by the OEC or submitted by an affected party, a complaint triggers the complaint resolution procedure. That is what we colloquially refer to as an investigation. We investigate the complaint, we interview witnesses, and we ultimately make a determination of responsibility as to whether there was a policy violation. If the investigation determines that there is a violation of Loyola's policies or procedures, we take appropriate intervention actions depending on the circumstances. In some cases, parties may decide to pursue alternative resolution pathways, things like mediation or some other kind of negotiated resolution to resolve the issue. And this actually, just anecdotally, I'll share, we are seeing more and more of in the cases that come through our office because it's what the parties are looking for. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, very high-level overview of the university's coordinated response to reports, but please know, above all else, the OEC is deeply committed to not only making sure that you feel safe while you are studying abroad, but also in the event that something happens, walking you through all of this information. It's our goal to make these processes as accessible as possible. So thanks so much again for taking the time to listen to what I had to share today. I actually think I'm up on my time, so I don't think we have time for questions, but please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. And I will mention as well that we are more than happy to accommodate time zone differences, things of that nature, for folks when they reach out. So thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Nika. We appreciate your time. All right, everybody, I am going to talk about CISI insurance. This is mandatory for all students studying abroad. So you will be enrolled in our CISI health insurance policy for the duration of time that you are studying abroad. And so we are going to talk about the enrollment of that, what you will receive when you are enrolled, the tools and resources, claim submission and reimbursement process, and how to reach out to CISI. So with the CISI insurance, the study abroad office will do the enrollment about 1 month prior to your departure. And so after we do that enrollment, a welcome package will be emailed to your LUC email account. And so that email, that welcome package, will have a subject line of CISI materials. So if you are looking for it, you can plug in those keywords to do a search, and it will come directly from enrollments@culturalinsurance.com. It does not come from me, but it will come from CISI directly. So I always want to point that out to students while we're going through pre-departure orientation. And then I'd like to also point out that sometimes these emails that are coming from CISI may go into a spam or junk folder. So just be aware of that. Take a look into those folders if you don't see that. I typically send out an email indicating that enrollment has happened and to be on the lookout for those for that particular welcome package email. So it gives you a heads up that it's coming your way, and therefore you can start to look for it. And then, as I mentioned, if you don't see it, please go into your junk or spam folder, or just reach out to me and I'm happy to have it resent again if needed. So what's included in the welcome package? So what you'll receive is the brochure itself, and I've done a QR code here. So that's accessible to you now. If you have questions and you want to review what that policy looks like, you can scan this and read the coverage designed for you as a student with LUC education abroad. In addition to that, you'll receive a participant ID card. Later on in the next slide, I'll show you what that looks like physically. That participant ID card comes again in that email. It's an attachment. So you will not receive a physical card. It will be an electronic card. Feel free to print that out if you'd like, or later on in the presentation, I'll talk about the CISI app. So you'll be able to easily access, it's easily accessible to you when needed. You'll also receive a consulate letter. You'll receive information on a claim form, and then they will also have instructions and links to CISI's Traveler app that I just alluded to, and also to the My CISI participant portal, which you'll also be using as well. This is what I was mentioning. I'm a visual person, so I like to put this out there for students to see. This again will be attached to that CISI welcome package email. And this is what your card looks like. This is the electronic version. Keep in mind, this is an older version, so the policy number will be 24. And it'll have your ID number, your name, and your coverage dates. Earlier, Marlene mentioned the emergency numbers. This is accessible to you should something come up. And so that's AXA assistance. And so those phone numbers are here, and we encourage you to utilize that when you are in a situation, an emergency situation, to call. This I'd like to provide to students as well. This is a QR code to kind of give you a visual of what that CISI claim form looks like. I want to give it to you on the front end because you know, it's always when you're in an emergency situation or you're overseas, you might get a little stressed and you want to know what's coming your way and how to fill out that form. So take a glance at that. It's a very simple form with information. And again, our Rome Res Life team is very familiar with it as well, so they can assist you further if you have questions. And then next, I would like to always point out the CISI participant portal. This is something you can, you'll have the link to, and you'll follow their instructions, and you can view this on your computer. And so it has lots of helpful information. It'll provide you links to documents such as your ID, consulate letter, or the policy brochure, like I mentioned. It also provides you the opportunity, should you need to look for a provider, you can plug in the country and the city, and you can designate whether you're looking for preferred or non-preferred, and it'll provide a list for you. So when you have those minor illnesses and you have a little time to search for a provider, you can jump onto this portal and start searching. In addition to that, it has contact information and again, claim information and such. So I like to highlight that for the students so you can become familiar with what that looks like. And then how to reach CISI. This is important. Again, not only can our office help you, you have multiple resources. The on-site staff in Rome can assist you. They have access to these numbers. But in addition to that, I like to highlight them here. We have the phone numbers and the emails as well. And again, as I mentioned, this is being recorded and the slides will be available on the Go Global brochure. So you can always go back to this if needed. And then I would like to now further discuss the app downloads and the registrations that we require for you as a student with the Rome Center. The three that are downloads and registrations are Alert Traveler app, the STEP registration, and the CISI app. These are requirements that are listed in your Go Global registration. So we want to highlight and provide some additional information and links regarding these. Moving on to starting off with the Alert Traveler app. This is it's a safety feature. We want you to have this, it's linked to your itinerary record. So for you in Rome, Italy, it's a safety feature app and it provides you with info about the country that you're visiting. You'll receive, when you download that app and you activate it, you'll receive safety and security alerts. And it also allows the Study Abroad office to send out any push notification should there be an incident that occurs near your location. You will also have the ability to opt into geolocation services. If you travel elsewhere outside of your itinerary record, meaning Rome, Italy, and you opt into the geolocation services with this app, it will follow you wherever you go, and it will send you and our Study Abroad office safety and security alerts based on where you are within that geolocation services. Should you travel outside of your record, you want to make sure that you opt into that so that we can provide you those notifications, so that the app can provide you those notifications if needed. We recommend that you opt into at least the most critical notifications. There's many options, as you see when you go through this process, that you can opt into, but we recommend that you at least opt into the most critical notifications, and it can be adjusted based on what you want to be notified of. The Rome Center also has a mandatory weekend travel log that you will need to input your plans should you travel outside Rome for the weekend. So there's kind of a little more old school version there, and then we have the app as well that's available to you. So these are QR codes in which to assist you in downloading that Alert Traveler app. You'll use these QR codes if you have an iOS phone, and then you'll use this particular one if you have an Android phone. Afterwards, once you've downloaded the app, you are going to access your Go Global registration from your mobile device. And so you will log in off of your phone and select your Rome Center registration, and you'll navigate down that page to your offline requirement section and click on the Alert Traveler Outgoing Material. And so this is what you will see in your offline requirement. There's hyperlinks about what is Alert Traveler. There's a video just to give you additional information. There's also a video that talks about what I'm mentioning here, the downloading and activating. But as I mentioned, you're going to click on this last one, which is click here to activate Alert Traveler. And so when you do click on there, it is going to pop up what's called an activation panel. And so this is a visual guide of what you'll see that comes up onto your phone. And so when you do see this, you are going to input the information like the country code, your phone number. We want you to check off the box that says notify me by SMS if impacted by alerts. And then we want to make sure that once you are at the bottom, you want to click on the log in to Alert Traveler button and tap on that, and that once you've downloaded it, it will launch and activate that app for you. And so then from there, you will be prompted to grant several permissions that we mentioned. And then this, again, just kind of typically restates what I just mentioned here, that you're going to opt in for those SMS messaging and save and log to Alert Traveler. And then once you've done that, our system, our office will go into your registration, and we will mark off that material that you've completed it. So once you've been activated, we will know and we'll mark that off for you in your registration portal. The next item that we want you to enroll in is STEP. That is the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, which is through the United States Department of State. This is a free service that allows U.S. citizens and nationals to travel abroad and to enroll their trip. This is, again, a safety feature. We want to make sure that you have enrolled into this so that you can obtain important information from the embassy or the consulate near your destination country. In addition to it, it takes about 20 minutes to do the enrollment and answer the questions about your travel plans and make sure that you have your passport number handy as well. It'll walk you through all the steps. It's helpful not only for you as a student and the embassy with the government so that they know where you are should something happen and the government has to do an evacuation, but it's helpful for family and friends if they need to get in touch with you in case of an emergency as well. And then lastly, we want you to do the CISI Traveler app. This is on the go information for you as a CISI insurer. And so this is a health insurance app. Your itinerary, again, is linked to this app. So that's for Italy, but you can go in and add and edit travel plans on the go. So, you know, as I mentioned, the Rome Center has a weekend log that you would also fill out, but this is a great option for you too if you are, especially if you are planning to travel beyond the end date of your program. You can go into that CISI Traveler app and extend your CISI insurance for your personal travel, but just be aware that this will be at your expense if it's beyond the end date of our program. And so with that app, it's very similar in nature to the portal that we talked about, the CISI portal. It's just handy. It's in your hands. It's on your phone. And so you're able to access not only your CISI card, but your documents, medical information, provider lookup, claim help, things like that. And then this is a guide for you if you're having troubles on how to download that CISI Traveler app. When you receive these slides, you can go back and scan that QR code and it'll go step by step on how to download. So let's talk about the student visas and arrival, what that's going to look like for you. As you know, and we've mentioned it multiple times, and you've seen the student visa workshops, students without a valid Italian or European Union passport will need to acquire a student visa. If you are not in one of those two categories, be aware you have to have that student visa in order to go to the Rome Center. So,
And you might have
with
already talked all this out in other classes or in other venues, so you don't feel like you need to, but I know
oh, I think we've
one
got
of
some
the
background
goals
information
we can
going
share
there.
is just,
Whoever is
you know,
there, if
sometimes
you
they're
could make sure
challenging,
that you
whatever
mute
it's
your,
related to be available to help and answer questions, so.
there. Okay, so talking about the EU, talking about the student visa and arrival, we want to make sure that you, if you are going to do a consulate appointment before in person, you want to have that before December 1st. If you are doing a mail-in option or a drop-off, we want to make sure that those materials are in the hands of the consulate no later than November 15th, keeping in mind that this process takes anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. And then again, you have those resources available to go over the student visa information that's in the tab under student visa info on the Go Global Rome Center brochure page. So student visas and arrival, the continuation of this. If you are landing at FCO Airport, you will navigate to customs and baggage claim, and then you'll look for the signs for the taxi stands. You want to utilize a licensed taxi. They are metered and they are yellow or white cabs that are identified by a number shield on the side of their vehicle. I always tell students to write down the address of the Rome Center so that you can provide that to the taxi driver. Sometimes your phone may not be working when you first get off of the plane. You might be tired, a little jet lag. So just always kind of have that handy on a piece of paper as a backup so that you can let them know. And then in addition to that, the ride from the FCO to campus is about 25 to 30 minutes for driving. And sometimes students will share a taxi. So if you make a connection or you see someone that's on your flight, you can always ask them if they want to split a cab. And the average cost for transportation from FCO to the Rome Center campus is about 90 euros. And then once you're on campus, you will begin that check-in and move-in process. And so you'll go through some documents with the team, do the check-in, and then later in the afternoon on the arrival day, there will be some floor meetings, potentially a group dinner in the Mensa. And then the next few days will be orientation meetings, academic presentations. They'll talk about the Rome Center study trips and workshops. So all helpful information. And so I'm going to pass it over to Adam Schilling and Abby Linneman to discuss campus and student life.
Howdy, everyone. This is Adam, Assistant Director of Enrollment Management for the Rome Center. And we're going to talk a little bit about campus and student life. This should be a refresher for some of you, but otherwise, this is going to be some good information of what you can expect once you get to the Rome Center campus. If you can hit the next slide, please, Milana. All right, so this is our home in Rome. This is our campus here, pictured there, right from the entrance. The neighborhood we are in Rome is called Balduina. It's on the highest point in Rome, which is Monte Mario. So for those of you that are Loyola students, it's very much like the Lakeshore campus here in Chicago. It's a residential neighborhood. There's lots of parks, little shops, restaurants, things like that, but it's extremely well connected to the rest of the city. So from our campus in Rome, you have a couple of different options to get to the city center or to the various neighborhoods around Rome. We have 2 bus lines, and at the bottom of the hill is the regional train and metro stop, which is kind of the way you can get into the city. You can get back to the airport with that train, or if you want to go up for some day trips to Florence or down to Napoli, that's where you can do that as well. Next slide, thank you. Our campus there, we're actually the oldest American program in Rome, which is kind of cool considering how old of a city Rome is. Our campus there is a full campus, we like to call it. So it has all of those college amenities that you as American students at American style universities are used to. So we have our dining hall, our Mensa. You'll live in one of our residence halls there. We have a little gym, recreation facilities. We have our cafe. We have our library, our mini IC, we call it. And then, of course, we've got lots of classrooms all around this beautiful property with lots of open green space and olive grove, basketball court, all that kind of good stuff. We have support staff for you 24/7. The campus is monitored 24/7. You need your ID to actually get into the gate of campus. So everyone that's there is supposed to be there. So you can feel pretty safe and secure while you're there on campus in Baldwina. Thank you. Next slide. Student life is incredibly vibrant at the Rome Center. So you all are going to be, one of around 230 students that will be there for the spring semester. When you arrive on campus, so basically from January 15th through 18th or 19th, you'll have a comprehensive orientation. Our student life team will get you acclimated to the campus. We'll take you on a neighborhood walk around Baldwina to give you kind of a lay of the land. And then we'll even take you somewhere kind of out in the city in Rome too, to see some ruins, maybe go to the beach, things like that. So you'll have a pretty good idea of where you are, where you're situated within Rome right off the bat. Throughout your semester, there's all kinds of on-campus programming that we do. So we'll have guest lectures, movie nights, karaoke is always a big one. Alana mentioned Simone is one of the student life team. He loves karaoke. You're going to love hearing him sing. So there's lots of fun things to do on campus, but off campus too is where you're going to have a lot of fun. So our student life team will lead you on hikes of Monte Mario. Those are actually led by Ann Wittrick, the library. He's a very avid hiker. Food crawls, you'll see museums, things like that, aperitivos. But the big one is Calcio. If you're a fan of soccer, whether you play or just watch, we'll have a team. We field a team. Our student life team will play with you. We'll play other Italian college students around the area. Great way to get to know other like local Italian students and just to know your peers. That's probably the biggest social event on campus. So even those that don't play, go and watch and like hang out afterwards and go out for pizza and things like that. Throughout the semester, you'll have study trips, and that will kind of take you somewhere in Italy or somewhere like close by to a different country. And of course, you probably already know this, you have no classes on Fridays, so you'll have lots of independent travel. And just to give you an idea of like where we're at in Rome, this is a campus map of the neighborhood of Baldwina. So you can kind of see the bus lines that you can take that go right down the hill into the Centro Historico. I would like screenshot or take a photo of this if you have it, or we can send it along to you. But this is where you like have your coffee shops. You can see where the train station is, where to get on the metro, where to get on the bus stops, even like where to go get your hair done or like pharmacies around the area. So this is a good kind of overview of where we are. And you'll see we're kind of right over here, kind of nestled back where this little house is with the Loyola logo. So we're in this kind of very beautiful nook of Baldwina. The first time I ever went there, the first thing I noticed was the smell of the flowers as I walked there. So it's very idyllic.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
Back to you, Alana.
Back to me. I will talk about some of our Rome resources. And so just highlighting a few things for you here. Campus life. As we mentioned, there's a Mensa, which is the cafeteria. And so these are the times for lunch and dinner, depending upon the day of the week, as you can see here. As we mentioned earlier, it's important that you disclose any allergies or dietary restrictions. It is your responsibility to advocate within the country. So, be aware that the food service is mostly Italian. So it's going to be pasta, rice, soups, meat, fish, and vegetables. And so you may not find on campus that international variety that you may be used to from in the US. And so we want to make sure that you are aware of the expectations for that. And if there are any allergies or restrictions, that you communicate that with us or with the SAC. Ronaldo's Cafe. This is a great spot if you want to obtain some items for breakfast for the start of the day. And again, these are the times here, depending upon the day of the week. And it's a great little hangout spot too, outside of the Mensa, where a lot of students will do some of their homework, or it could be a social area. And they have a variety of items available to you, anything from, coffee and a croissant in the morning to a salad or yogurt or fruit or sandwiches as well, and ice cream from what I recall as well. So just be mindful that the times are subject to change. We post it here so you have an idea, but during your on-site orientation, there may be some changes that happen. So this just gives you an idea and an expectation of what is offered so far for the dates and times. In addition to that, with Campus Life, there are laundry services that are available to you. What's different is you may be accustomed to it being free here at Loyola and using your ID card. Unfortunately, that is not the case there. You will need to pay €2 for each washer and dryer load costs €2. And so we want to make sure that you are aware of that going in. In addition to that, you will be able to exchange your sheets, towels, and pillowcases. So that is provided to you from the Rome Center. And so weekly you can do that. And that's on Tuesdays from 1:30 to 3 p.m. And again, they'll highlight this on the on-site orientation where to drop that off. But please note that you have the ability to exchange those sheets and that's there for you. I do know some people have a preference for a blanket. So we kind of say if you want something like a soft fuzzy blanket, maybe bring it with you, or factor that into purchasing while you're there. They do offer one there, but it may not be to your standard or liking. In addition to that, on Campus Life, we have a gym, as Adam mentioned earlier, and that is open Monday to Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. I also want to highlight and make sure that everyone's well aware that you are allowed 2 guests in your room from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. There are no, and I'll repeat, no overnight guests allowed. So students sometimes feel that a friend is coming to visit and they can stay. That is not allowed. So make sure that your guests have made other arrangements or for their accommodation. And then lastly, we do have weekly mass. That is on Sundays at 8 p.m. And I'm going to turn it back over to Adam and Abby for academics and course registration.
All right, here we go. All right, so while you're at the Rome Center, you will either be sophomore, junior, or senior. There will be some first-year students there doing our Rome Star program, but they've already been there for the fall, so but you'll be joining them in the spring. Of course, any major is welcome. If you've already planned it out and you can make this work, we're happy to have you. Most students are going to need to take Italian 101 either before you go or while you're there. If you have any questions about that, you can contact myself or Carla Malika in Rome. There are some exemptions, like if you're an Italian speaker or if you're from one of our visiting partner schools. Your class load while you're there. So for Loyola students, it's the same minimum as we have here at the Lakeshore campus. So it's 12. You need to take at least 4 classes while you're there. You can take up to 18. We usually don't recommend it because of the course sequencing and just like the study abroad nature of the campus being Monday through Thursday schedule. But always talk to Carla if you have any questions about that. And then one thing I want to mention about the credit hours requirement, if you are a non-Loyola student, like you're visiting student, check with your home institution to match their requirements. So there are some schools that are going to require you take 15 credit hours as your minimum while you're in Rome. So double check with them to make sure you know what your minimum is for your academic load. Next slide. The courses we have there, we have a ton. So you'll have over 60 to choose from for the spring semester. The courses are primarily core focused or like general education focused in many different fields, tier 1 and tier 2, but we also have a lot of courses that might work for your actual major or minor. The spring course list is actually up on our website right now, so you can check that out under spring 2025. Our faculty there are all international faculty. We do have a couple of American expats, but you're going to be learning from not just experts in their field, but people that are very intimately familiar with Rome, Italy, Europe, the Mediterranean in general. When you go to select courses, you can actually see if the course is just in class, partially or fully on site. I always recommend students try to take at least one on-site course. On-site courses sound exactly what they sound like. Your class session for any given day is meeting that professor somewhere in the city, going to a museum, going to an archaeological site, going to a historic location, or even just a market and things like that. And they're kind of your walking encyclopedia, and your class is right there on site in Rome. So that gives you it's a great learning experience. And it's also just a great way to kind of get to know the lay of the land and how to get around Rome and some of the unique places in Rome that you probably wouldn't see if you were just going as a tourist. Course registration is all done through Locus. If you're a Loyola student, you'll have no issues with that. It'll be exactly what it's looked like in the past. If you're a visiting student, you should have gotten pretty comprehensive instructions on how to register for courses within Locus. It's fairly simple once you get in there and start adding courses to your shopping cart. While you go through course registration, never hesitate to contact Carla if you have any questions. If you're a visiting student and you see like a course that's like not letting you in because of a prereq, email Carla. She can help you get into that course or let you know if the prereq is necessary. Next slide. Oh, sorry, Alana, can you go back? One thing I want to mention, we have internships there for credit. So if you haven't already, go to our engaged learning section of our website and look at all the information for the internship programs we have in Rome. That's 3 credit hours, usually about 20 hours per week while you're there. And our coordinator, Nadia, can help you set up with like an organization or workplace that will give you some really good experience as an internship in Rome. Sorry, Alana, thank you.
No problem.
So just kind of give you an overview of course registration. You can go into Locus to view the courses being offered, and you can go to that like left-hand bar side and click Manage Classes. It's not, I'm sorry, this will be in the middle of your screen, Manage Classes. And then on the left-hand side, you'll do a search for Spring 2025. Very important when you do the class search, make sure you go down to the campus section and choose the Rome Center campus when you search. That way, all the classes that pull up are only the ones being offered at the Rome Center. You can also know that they're Rome courses because they'll all have the letter A at the beginning of them if they're like course digit number. So check that. And then once you find a course that you want to take, just add it into your cart, put the 4-digit course number, and then enter that into your shopping cart, and you'll see that course appear in your shopping cart. And once you get at least 4 or 5, you can then go to enroll. Next slide. Grades while you're at the Rome Center. They all come back automatically as letter grades. If you would like to take like a classes pass, no pass, you can go to our Loyola website to look at the procedures and what you need to do for that, and do a pass, no pass request also through Locus. So if you're not familiar with Locus, get familiar with Locus. There's going to be that's kind of like your student hub for like your course registration and billing and all that too. You can find the pass, no pass in the online forms and help section. It'll be pass, no pass undergraduate request. Please submit those within the first 2 weeks for the semester students. So kind of get that in your head before you go or actually like land in Rome. We don't have any sort of classes that are not for credit. So every class you take is going to come back as something is going to come back for college credit. There are some classes that you can't self-enroll in, like I mentioned, or have a prereq. So if you do haven't run into any of those, email Carla. She will help you either get into those courses or manually override them. If you have any questions about registration or a class is full or something like that, you can also email Carla. I'll say this right now, if it hasn't been mentioned, if you do email Carla, she's in Rome. There's a 7-hour time difference from Chicago and Rome. So kind of do the math wherever you are if you're not in Chicago. So just keep that in mind when you email her. She might be emailing you back at like 2:30 in the morning, but that's like in the morning for her. I already mentioned, make sure you check with your home institution, make sure you're taking the appropriate number of credits for your time in Rome. And while you're in Rome, you cannot take online courses like asynchronous courses. You cannot take them while you're at the Rome Center. We want you there, we want your head there and like focused on the classes there in Rome. These are actually two things that Carla wanted us specifically to mention. I mentioned there's no classes on Fridays. That wasn't entirely true. I'm sorry for lying to you. There are 2 Friday class days, and these are dates that actually make up for like the breaks you take when you go to like spring break and things like that. So you can write these down right now and start planning around them. February 7th and March 21st. Those are also already on the academic calendar that you can view on our website. Carla also mentioned or suggested that students not book travel ahead of arriving in Rome before you actually know like what your quiz exam schedule is. Makeups and like rescheduling and those things are like really difficult. And like if you have travel booked, she just wants you to be aware of that so you're not like booking a flight when you should be taking a test kind of vibe. I did mention internships briefly, but these are really, really good experiences for your time abroad as part of your study abroad experience. Or we actually have a whole section on our website that's dedicated to internships. Where you can like actually get placed is in some ways up to you and like where you want to go and what you want to get out of it. You can go to like Italian companies, nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, even like museums and things like that. So you can kind of work with Nadia once you get into the process of like where you want to be placed. You do not need an online application for that. It's pretty short and simple. You'll have some requirements to send in to Nadia for that course before you can actually get officially registered. You can actually apply for that now. The deadline date is the 15th, so you've got another 8 days to submit those applications. We've seen quite a few of them come in already. But use those QR codes to check out those pages and actually get an application in. And if you do think an internship would be a good part of your course load while you're in Rome.
Great. Thanks,
Back
Adam.
to you, Lana. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So preparing for study abroad. These are just some basics that we're going to go over here. You want to prepare your documents for your study abroad program. So you want to make copies of documents such as your passport, your credit or debit cards to the front and the back, your insurance card, important medical information. These are things you want to have, take with you, the hard copies, just in case if you lose something or there's a theft of some sort with your credit cards, you at least have a hard copy of what it was and the phone number. We also encourage you to, prepare those documents and make those copies and give a set to your parents or guardians so they can assist you too, should something happen and you need to make a phone call to a credit card company, or if you need your passport number and, you lose your passport. In addition to that, let's talk about money matters. I think it's important that students take out some local currency before they depart. As we mentioned earlier, do not do large amounts of cash. That's not needed. It's not safe. But take out a little bit of some currency before your departure. So keeping in mind, like the taxi cab, I think Marley alluded to, Apple Pay and credit cards. It's pretty paperless throughout Italy or Rome, but there are some areas in some of the smaller towns where you might need that cash. And so there is an ATM machine on site that will provide you euros when you go there to get money. But as I mentioned, bring some local currency with you, especially when you land from the plane and you have some cash in case you need that for the taxi. It's also important to contact your bank and credit card companies and let them know about your travel plans. Especially, it would be horrible if you're purchasing something and it gets declined because they don't know that you're in Italy. So do that communication with your bank and with your credit card companies. As I mentioned, make copies of those cards as well. Have multiple ways to access your funds, do your research. Know if you're going to use Apple Pay, if you're going to have a credit card, you're going to have a debit card, things like that. Know your research and have a plan of what your multiple ways are to have access to those funds. As a reminder, tuition is identical to Chicago. So any LUC scholarships or financial aid automatically applies to the Rome Center for the semester that you're abroad. If you have questions or doubts or concerns about your financial aid package, we always encourage you to reach out to abroadfinaid@luc.edu for financial disbursement dates and things like that. So definitely reach out to them. They can assist you. Below are some websites that I encourage you to visit. One is a currency converter app that helps you know what the conversion rate is. In addition to that, there's another one that does compare costs. It's nice to know, like, you know, what is the typical cost for a cup of coffee over there. Here in the United States, you know, Starbucks could be $6. Over there, it's much more affordable. And so you'll be pleasantly surprised by a few things when you start looking at that information. Communication. I think this is really important. Make sure that you discuss a plan and expectations prior to your departure with your loved ones. It's important because they get very nervous. This could be your first time traveling internationally, and you're tired, you're also excited, and you may forget to call them after that first day. And so they get a little nervous. And so make sure you discuss a plan, let them know what the expectations are, that you'll call them once a week, or as soon as you land at the airport, you'll call them, and then you won't call them for another 5 days. Just make sure that you have a plan in motion and they understand that. Also, I'd like to point out from our Res Life team that they use an app called Telegram. And so they ask that it's mandatory. And so that's where they do a lot of their communication in regards to the Res Life there. So they would like for you to download that onto your phone before coming to Italy. So make sure that you do that. If you have any questions, again, just feel free to reach out to one of us on the Rome team here on the Chicago side of things. Bring your mobile phone from home, but also have a conversation or do your research with your carrier to find out what's a good plan for you. Do you want to enroll in their international plan? You may want to, depending upon how old your phone is, if it's a newer phone, you might want to explore the use of an eSIM. That's a very simple and easy. If it's an older phone, you may have to get that SIM card, a physical SIM card unlocked so that you can purchase a SIM card, an Italian SIM card. So again, do your research, know what type of phone you have, talk to your carrier service, find out what works best for you. In addition to that, there's other apps that you can use like WhatsApp, WeChat, iMessage, Skype, Google Voice. I do know a lot of students use the WhatsApp. That's very nice. And then be careful and be aware if there are roaming data charges while you are abroad connected with your phone. So make sure you do your research on that as well. So packing and other tips that we'd like to make sure that you're aware of is, make sure that you have the correct outlet. It's an EU standard plug type. So if you have a hair dryer or some other, for your phones, things like that, make sure that you have these outlets so that you can adjust properly, or a converter, things like that. If you go to a travel store or if you're on Amazon, you can easily purchase these items to bring along with you. In addition to that, clothing, bring the basics. For a semester, you might have to, again, look to see what the climate is for that semester, for that date range from January to May. Might be on the cooler end and a bit more rainy at the beginning. And then towards May, it starts to warm up. So, you want to make sure that you're packing your clothing that's appropriate to the weather. Do your research and don't overpack because you will be purchasing things while you're there in Italy. So be strategic in what you decide to bring over in packing. The biggest thing is bring comfortable shoes. There's lots of cobblestone areas and streets. And so I know you might want to look fashionable and such, but I always think it's really important that you have those comfortable shoes when you are there in Italy. mightily because you'll be doing a lot of walking and there's a lot of hills as well. As I mentioned earlier, the Rome Center will provide you sheets, pillowcases, and pillows for your bed. So that's nice to know. And then a lot of students, if you have a laptop, make sure you bring that. You can do that. Again, make sure you have the appropriate plug-in types for that. There are, however, on-site common spaces and computers that are available to you, such as in the information common area, the library. Next steps. We want to make sure that you are reviewing those post-decision requirements in your Go Global. There may be one or two more that are deployed later on closer to your departure date. So make sure you're in tune and checking back on that Go Global registration area. As we mentioned, visit your doctor, talk about prescriptions and any on-site treatment that's needed. Make copies of all your documents, leave with family, and keep with you during your travels. And then most importantly, make sure that you read all the pre-departure materials. And you can, again, as I mentioned, you can use this as a resource. We'll have that up on the brochure page by early next week. And then I'll pass this over to Adam and Abby. There are some Rome Center events that are coming up.
Oh yeah, if you are a Loyola student, you're here on campus, we're having a couple of things for our International Education Week coming up starting the week of the 18th in November. So firstly, we have a student panel on Tuesday, November 19th from noon to 1 in the Sister Jean North Room. Pretty straightforward. We'll have a couple of Rome Center alumni, recent students that have gone there, so you can actually hear from them. They'll share their experiences, and it's really a way for you to ask them questions directly. And Abby and I are going to moderate that. On Thursday, the 22nd, from 9 to 11 in Palm Court and Mundline, we're going to have alumni mixer. So this is another chance for you students, both your cohort that's going for spring and some of like our 2025 applicants, to meet with recent Rome Center alum, to like kind of do sort of like a speed dating format where you can hear different from different people, different experiences about their time at the Rome Center. So you'll get to hear lots of different perspectives and thoughts and insights and what made the Rome Center like a very valuable time for them. And we'll have our world famous croissants offered there, as well as some coffee and tea. So there'll be some light refreshments for you too in that 2-hour period. And then we'll have our spring 2025 social. So on Thursday, December 5th, 11 to 2, Sister Jean North Room, come on through. This is a great way to kind of get to know your spring cohort that you're going to be spending the spring semester with face to face before you go. So we'll have some refreshments for that as well. And that'll be a little bit more like social kind of relaxed vibe. So it's really just a way for you to kind of connect with your fellow cohort before you go, put names to faces, make any last minute like roommate requests and things like that. So coming up in the next month or two.
All right. Well, this is your opportunity to ask the team here if you have any questions. We are happy to address those for you. Feel free to unmute yourself, or if you want to put it in the chat, one of us will take a look and address it as well. And if you're not comfortable speaking up here or the chat, again, you can always reach out to us via email as well.
Does the declaration for mailing passports have to be notarized?
Are you referring to the declaration of presence?
You mean the consent to mail your passport?
Mail my passport, yes.
So there's a form, it's called consent to send by mail. And so you do have to fill that out, but it does not need to be notarized.
Okay, and then just clarifying, it's only the visa application itself that needs to notarize.
The visa application form has to be notarized if you are not going in person in front of a visa officer. So yes, your signature has to be witnessed and notarized. The other piece is the proof of financial means. If that's not coming out of your bank account, and that is coming out of your parents or legal guardians, they will have to supply that proof of financial means. In addition to that, there's a form called affidavit of support, and that would need to be filled out, and the signature of your parents or guardians would have to also be notarized. But if the funds are coming strictly out of your bank account, then you don't need to do that additional affidavit of support. Any other questions?
To the question that asked about when you'll find out for the excursions, the student life team will email everyone probably at the end of December, early January with housing assignments, who your roommate would be, and then about any upcoming excursions. So you'll actually register for those excursions from the student life team when you get to campus during orientation week. Those are out-of-pocket expenses. So keep that in mind if you're planning on going on one of those trips. You should find out on either end of December or early January, and that'll come directly from the student life team. More than likely, Jack Spittle will be the one sending that email.
Well, if there are no other questions, thank you for attending. 2025 is a Jubilee year in Rome. What should we expect in regards to events, crowds, etc.?
Yes, indeed. It's going to be pretty crowded. You can expect a lot more tourists than you would see normally at all in the time that you're going to be there for the spring. The like high tourist season doesn't start until like midsummer. So, you know, I'm not sure how much it's tough to say now, like how it's gonna impact your daily life, but just kind of in general, especially around the Vatican, which is like right down the hill from us, like 10 or 15 minutes. Like I would expect lots of crowds. I would expect restaurants to be pretty packed, but other than that, kind of hard to say what effect it'll have on your experience there. But hopefully it's good. It's a good celebration. It's all positive.
I would say if you're trying to go to those tourist locations, the Vatican, the Colosseum, Spanish Steps, try to hit that early in your semester to avoid that big tourist crowd. That's going to be the same thing for Venice, Florence, Pisa. Those hot tourist locations are going to be the more populated areas. So seeing that first sometime in maybe January or February would be a good way to sort of avoid those crowds and still see everything that you might want to see. They'll talk more about Friday classes when you get to orientation as well, but I believe it is just the Monday, Wednesday classes, which will then meet on Friday as well. Adam, do you know anything more about those Friday classes? If it's all of the classes or just Monday, Wednesday classes?
I think it's any classes that you might have missed from your break. I don't think I haven't heard, I don't think it's all of your classes on those Fridays.
Sorry, that wasn't really helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending. As I mentioned, we'll have the recording and the slides up on the brochure page for Go Global by early next week and Monday. So you can always go back and reference the recording and the slides if need be, and then feel free to reach out to our team.